What's happening, folks? In this video I want to talk about my hopes, dreams, wants and wishes for the Fujifilm X-Pro4. And this obviously is not an X-Pro4, this is the X100V, but this camera has something to do with what I hope for from the X-Pro4. Now I'm sure that many of you will disagree with what I say in this video, and that's fine. I expect that. Most people want something different from their cameras and want to use it in a different way, and I do not expect anybody to assume that this is me saying this is how this should be and the best way for this camera to be, because that's just my opinion and what I want to see from it. Number one, I would like it to have a screen similar to the X100V. A lot of people want to see like flip out screens that flip and tilt. The X-T4 has it, so I feel like Fujifilm wouldn't purposely give it the same exact screen. They want to keep those two lines more separate so that more video focused people will go towards the X-T4 or hybrid shooters, and maybe more photography focused people will go towards the X-Pro, because it has that optical viewfinder, because what is the point in that if you're going to use it for video? And that's probably what adds half the price on that camera, when you can get a technically far more capable camera in the X-T4, if it looks similar to the X-Pro4. My god, this might be more complicated than I thought. So I would like it to have a screen like the X100V, because if it's more photography focused, flipping it out like that, in my opinion, for the way that I shoot, I don't see why that would be useful. It's only useful for video, I think, and shooting YouTube videos. Or X-T3 type screen where it will also like tilt or whatever. That's fine too, I don't really care. It could honestly even not tilt and I would not be that bothered as long as it had the touchscreen, because that is another part of that screen that I like. And it's not so that I can touch to focus, I mentioned this in a video before. It's so that I can just move the focus point around fast. So if I'm shooting a wedding or something like that, sometimes someone's coming down the aisle and you get your focus point in the, whatever third of the screen you maybe want it in, and you focus and shoot, and you have to keep refocusing because people are coming down the aisle and it's a shallow depth of field. But then if you want to do a portrait one, you have to sort of move the focus point up a bit. So on the Canons that I shoot with, I'm like bumping this thing, or like you press the focus thing and then roll it so it moves up quicker, and it's just more steps. I like that I could just be looking through the viewfinder, moving my thumb back and forth across and focusing on two different things like within a fraction of a second, and it just makes everything faster. So that for me is why the screen is kind of the important thing. The X-Pro3, I see why they did that. They're trying to make it sort of, it's kind of like a cool thing to make it more like film just now. It hides that screen away and it forces people to not chimp or whatever. But if someone wants to chimp, they're going to take a shot and flip the screen down and see it, and take a shot and flip the screen down and see it. And then otherwise, maybe someone will just have like the image review in the viewfinder or something like that. But I think it's probably just been more of an annoyance than anything else. If you don't want to chimp, switch the LCD off. I don't have image review on. The first thing I did with this was switch image review off, so when I'm shooting, it's not interrupting the shooting experience with showing me the image that I just shot. I just carry on shooting, and when I want to review the images, then I'll go back and review them. Often that's not until I get home, or at least back in the car. Number two, I don't want it to have IBIS in it. And that is probably going to be a really contentious point. Everybody seems to want IBIS to be added into stuff. I think for video purposes, it's very useful in that sense. I don't think it's that useful for photography. Might make it a little bit bigger, might not. Might have a little like rattle sort of internal sound, and I just don't care. I've never really had it. I've had obviously lens stabilization, and that I didn't care about either. So if it has it, then fine. I just would like it to not be rattly and annoying, or bigger somehow. And again, they should if they're differentiating the lines of stuff, the Pro series is more that kind of like hipstery cool style stuff, and the XT is a bit more hybrid, shooting both stuff. And the X Pro, I guess, could be more focused towards documentary or whatever. I don't really know. I just don't want it to have IBIS. Right, point number 3. I would like the shutter to be quieter, and I think most people do not care about this at all. It seems like the X-T4 shutter was made quieter compared to the other ones. It's got like a much more dampened kind of sound, and I quite like quiet shutters, especially for street photography. And for weddings, at certain points of the day, quiet shutter is actually pretty nice to have because it's far less obtrusive, and when there's a quiet moment during a ceremony or something, it's, you know, and there's a moment happening but there's silence, it doesn't interrupt that as much. And if nothing else, if it doesn't have a quiet shutter, if it would just have a global electronic shutter, so it doesn't have that banding thing, if you happen to be moving or something while shooting, it'll just be frozen like normal motion would be. I think sometimes people enjoy the sound of the shutter on cameras, and that's fine as well, and totally understandable, because I get that, but just in practical use terms, I like it being quiet. Alright, the fourth thing is, it's not as big of a deal, but I would like it to have the ISO dial of the X100V. I think this was kind of a smart move. At first I was like, who cares? I don't really care about that at all. I'm going to set it to auto probably, or I'll move it once to, you know, whatever I want it, and I'll leave it there. But it's actually pretty good. I would much rather, if I was going from auto to like, I don't know, 3000, I'm on 3200 ISO, it's at like the opposite end of the scale. It would be much easier because I have to do 2 or 3 little turns to get from auto to 3200, so I see why this is good. Maybe if they were able to engineer in some sort of like click, so you could get used to how many clicks it takes to get from one to the other, and you could do it without looking, then maybe. But I think majority of the time, if I'm doing professional work, I'm changing ISOs, I'm gonna use this front dial anyways. But yeah, that would be a nice thing to have, because that was a good piece of engineering. Number 5, fewer megapixels. To be honest, 26 or the same. Like, they just plateau it a little bit. There's always this push to add more megapixels into things, and 24 is more than enough. Most of the time, 18 is more than enough. So if they kept it at 26 point whatever it is just now, or put it back to 24, or if they wanted to go nuts, bring it down to 20, make the pixels bigger and make it a little bit better in low light, that would be great, especially for shooting weddings. Yeah, I don't know if that would be unpopular or not. I don't know if people prefer high megapixels nowadays. I know there's a lot of like 40, 45 megapixel cameras coming out, so that might be another unpopular opinion, but I would like it to stay at a smaller megapixel count. The last thing is not really something that I want from the camera itself, just more from Fujifilm. I would like it to have an earlier release date. Judging by its, the X-Pro2 to the X-Pro3 was 3 years. The X-Pro2 was really popular. I think it sold very well, and it held its value as well. And I think that Fujifilm held on for the 3 years before releasing because the X-Pro2 was still doing so well. I don't know if the X-Pro3 is doing as well. I don't hear as much about it. I don't hear as much talk about it. I think that maybe that screen has put a lot of people off. Still seems like a great camera though. I just don't think it's been doing as well as the X-Pro2 did. There was 3 years, so you would think another 3 years. If it came out in 2019, so it's probably 2022 before they think about releasing the X-Pro4. But there was 18 months between the X-T3 and the X-T4. I think it was about 18 months, maybe a little more. And that was really short. That's a short amount of time. And people started to think of the X-T3 and X-T4 as almost like 2 different lines of cameras, where you might, if you were more video focused, you might go more towards the X-T4. Well, if they realize that they just need to, change a couple things, put a different screen on the back of it, and update some stuff, maybe they'll release an X-Pro4 to sort of make up for their downfalls of the X-T3, maybe. I would like them to do that, because I think I would buy a pair of X-Pro4s for weddings, maybe, if I haven't bought something else by then. But in all likelihood, there will probably be a longer wait I'm just kind of salty about it because I wanted to buy Fujifilm cameras, the X100V Screen and rangefinder style made me want to shoot with this type of thing for weddings, but this doesn't have dual card slots, so I don't think I could shoot one of these for a wedding realistically. But yes, I still shoot Canon for work, and I would rather shoot Fuji because I like the cameras better. Not image quality wise, just like handling wise. So yeah, that is my thoughts on the X-Pro4. Let me know what you thought down in the comments. Do you have an X-Pro3? Is there anything that you would change on it? Do you like the screen? I think it would be fine. I would use it quite happily, but I know that I would just have to do that focusing thing now. I almost bought X-Pro3s for work, and it wasn't until I used this and I realized I wanted that focusing screen thing because it was handy. But yeah, do you have them? What do you think of them? Should they update that screen? Should they make it a normal screen or a flat one like the X100V? Yeah, thank you very much for watching. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Hopefully in the next video, or maybe the one after that, I'm going to be back out shooting on the streets, planning on maybe going to Denver next Thursday, so we'll see what happens. Alright, cheers!